dive. Today we're going to be tackling a topic that I know a lot of people are curious about, squirting.
Definitely generates a lot of buzz.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of mystery, too.
Absolutely.
But we are going to be looking at a video from the Healthy Cast channel that features a urologist and a pelvic surgeon who are going to try to sort of demystify it a little bit for us.
Good.
So I think we all know this is a topic that can sometimes feel a little delicate. So as always, we're approaching this with respect for everyone's experience and a lot of scientific curiosity.
Yeah, I think you're right that not a lot of people are really comfortable talking about this or that they even really know a lot about it.
Right. And maybe we should even start by defining what exactly we're even talking about here.
Yeah, that's a great point. The video defines squirting as fluid that is emitted from the urethra during arousal or orgasm.
Okay.
And it's really important to emphasize that this is not urination.
Right.
We're talking about a fluid that can range in amount from a small amount to a larger gush, and it's often clear or colorless.
Okay, so not pee.
Right.
Got it. Okay, and one of the things that I found super interesting in the video was this connection to the male prostate. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the most surprising parts of this whole topic. So there are these glands called Skene's glands, and they're located around urethra.
Okay.
And they're actually homologous to the male prostate.
What does that mean?
It means that they develop from the same fetal tissue.
Wow.
So it's thought that these glands fill with fluid during arousal.
So there's like a female prostate equivalent.
Yeah, in a way.
That's wild. That really changes how I always thought of female sexual anatomy.
It does. It really underscores how much we still don't know about the female body.
Absolutely. So, okay, we've got these Skene's glands. They're filling up with fluid. How does that actually lead to squirting?
So the video explains that during orgasm, the pelvic floor muscles contract. And that creates pressure on the tissues around the urethra and basically kind of squeezes those Skene's glands and expels the fluid.
Oh, so it's like a chain reaction.
Right.
Triggered by the muscle contractions. That's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is.
But what about the fluid itself?
Yeah.
What's in it?
So primarily, it's thought to be fluid from the Skene's glands.
Ooh.
However, it can sometimes contain a small amount of diluted urine.
Interesting.
And this is where it gets even more interesting because the presence of PSA, or prostate-specific antigen, in the fluid further supports that connection to the Skene's glands.
So hold on, if the fluid can also contain urine, does that mean some women might be mistaking it for needing to pee?
That's definitely possible, and it's one of the reasons why there can be so much confusion around this whole topic of squirting.
Yeah.
Because it's not always clear-cut, and individual experiences can really vary.
Okay, so that makes sense. Now, the video also makes this distinction between squirting and female ejaculation. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So while both involve the release of fluid, ejaculation typically involves a smaller amount of milky fluid, and it's often described as having a different texture and smell.
Okay.
Squirting, on the other hand, usually involves a larger volume of clearer fluid.
So different fluids, different mechanisms.
Right.
It seems like we're starting to kind of unravel some of the mystery here. But the video also mentions a Swedish study that looked into how women actually feel about squirting.
Right.
And I'm really curious about that part of it. So why was this study so important?
Well, there's actually a real lack of research on the subjective experience of squirting. A lot of what we know comes from media portrayals or just anecdotal evidence, which can be really misleading and often perpetuates stereotypes.
Yeah.
This Swedish study aimed to change that by directly asking women about their personal experiences.
Okay, so they actually interviewed women who identify as squirters.
Exactly.
Oh.
They interviewed 28 women to get a deeper understanding of their perceptions and feelings about squirting.
Okay, and what did they find?
Well, they found three main themes in how the women experienced squirting. The first was a sense of amazement, pride, and some even described it as a sexual superpower.
A sexual superpower. That's, I never thought about it that way, but I can definitely see how it could feel really empowering.
Right. It definitely can.
Yeah.
They talked about actively learning how to squirt or just discovering it through exploration, and a lot of them felt a sense of specialness and uniqueness, like they were one of the few that could do it.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that not everyone feels that way.
Yeah, you're right. The second theme that emerged was indifference or just a lack of connection to an orgasmic feeling.
Yeah.
Some women found it overrated or they didn't even realize it was happening.
So it wasn't universally mind-blowing.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And that's important to emphasize because, just like any aspect of sexuality, experiences are going to vary from person to person.
Right, of course. Okay, so we've got amazement, we've got indifference. What else? What other themes came up in the research?
Yeah. So the third theme, and this is perhaps the most significant in terms of understanding how complex this topic is, this theme revolves around feelings of discomfort or shame.
Discomfort and shame, really? That's surprising given like the positive reactions that we just talked about.
I know. It is surprising.
Uh,
And it really shows you the influence of societal norms and expectations.
yeah.
Some women describe squirting as messy or inconvenient, while others confused it with urination, which led to embarrassment.
It's kind of amazing how much baggage we attach to all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like how many women are out there feeling ashamed or confused about something that's totally natural.
That's a really good point, and it shows why research like this Swedish study is so important.
Yeah.
It's challenging those assumptions and creating space for honest conversations about these diverse experiences.
It seems like the big takeaway here is that there's no right way to feel about this.
Exactly.
It's a personal experience that can be shaped by all kinds of things.
Right. The study really emphasizes the role of individual perspectives, partner reactions, and cultural influences.
Okay, so let me see if I can sum this up.
Yeah.
How a woman feels about squirting is deeply personal.
Uh-huh.
It can be shaped by her views on sexuality, her partner's reaction to it, and the messages she's received from society.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
about recognizing and respecting that diversity of experience without judgment or shame.
Well said. So if we try to like connect all this back to our listeners,
Yeah.
what are some of the big takeaways from this deep dive? Like what do we really want people to understand about squirting?
I think the most important thing is that squirting is a normal physiological response,
Mm-hmm.
but the experience of it is incredibly subjective
Yeah.
and can be influenced by a ton of factors.
Okay.
We shouldn't be making assumptions about how someone feels about it based on what we see in the media or cultural stereotypes.
Right. It's about understanding the science,
Uh-huh.
acknowledging the range of emotions it can bring up,
Yes.
and I think most importantly, creating these open and honest conversations about sexual health.
The exact. Knowledge and open communication are really the keys to destigmatizing these topics and empowering people to embrace their bodies and their experiences.
This has been so interesting. I'm curious, before we wrap up, is there anything else from the video or the research that really stands out to you?
Well, one thing that really stuck with me was how this whole topic connects to the bigger picture of how we view female sexuality in society.
Oh, yeah.
The video actually ends with a question for us. How do you think those messages we get about female sexuality might affect a woman's experience with squirting and how she sees it?
That's a really good question to think about. I mean, it makes you realize that what's considered normal or acceptable could totally shape how a woman reacts to squirting.
Exactly.
Whether she sees it as something that's empowering or if she kind of just dismisses it or even feels ashamed about it.
Uh-huh. And that's why we really need more open and honest conversations about female pleasure and sexuality in general. It shouldn't be about judgment or shame. It should be about letting women explore their bodies and their experiences without fear or stigma.
You know, we have come a long way in being more open about these topics.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's still work to do in getting rid of those old-fashioned beliefs and really promoting body positivity.
For sure. Education is key. The more we learn and can talk openly about these things, the better we'll be at creating a society that's more understanding and accepting.
Well, this deep dive has given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
It's amazing how something that seems purely physical can actually be so tied to our emotions, our relationships, even cultural norms.
It is. It's a good reminder that sexuality is complex and there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Yeah, and that's a great point to wrap things up on.
I think so.
Remember, knowledge is power, and the more we understand about our bodies and our experiences, the more we can embrace our sexuality in all its different forms.
Well said.
Yeah.
And I would encourage everyone listening to keep learning about this and keep having open and respectful conversations about sexual health.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into squirting. We'll see you next time.